Here we go. Tuesday Talks with Mike and Freddie, his handy sidekick. Okay.
This morning I'd like to talk about musicals, which are a uniquely American invention, although many countries have done them. But the musical thrived like no other in the United States for a couple of reasons. One is that America created a film industry that was second to none. America has contributed 3 or 4 major strands to popular art worldwide. And I would put the movies right up there. Now, of course, the Germans had movies beforehand, and many countries have produced spectacular films, but none can match the sheer volume, breadth, and scope of the American film industry. The other American art forms that we have contributed to the world include comic books, jazz, and rock and roll. But it's musicals I want to talk about for a couple of reasons. I credit musicals with my love for rock and roll. And you say, well, how can that be? Excuse me, folks. I got a frog living in my throat.
You got a dog in your lap.
I have a dog in my lap and a frog in my throat. And the dog wants the frog. So I don't know how I'm going to get this done. But the thing about musicals is they're crowd pleasers. And they exploded during the Great Depression because people wanted to forget their misery. And the American film industry responded by giving them entertainment that was sheer joy, that didn't have an agenda. The only agenda was to send you out of the theater singing. I started watching musicals as a wee lad. I remember West Side Story, Footlight Parade, so many others. And one of the things I noticed about these musicals was the songs that they created. Many of the songs came from Broadway and were incorporated into the musical after they debuted on stage. And the songs were designed to be memorable. And that meant that aside from the main melody, they had to have a bridge and a hook. Well, what's that? A bridge is a change in chords or rhythm that creates a tension, and the hook is a chord or a change in rhythm that resolves the tension. And that's the essence of power pop. I don't want to get into power pop right now. It was a term coined by Peter Townsend of The Who and refers to the type of joyous, upbeat, popular rock and roll which involves a bridge and a hook. And to name 3 of the greatest power pop bands, the Beach Boys, the Beatles, and the Byrds. But back to musicals. During the Depression, musicals exploded. I had a great teacher. His name was Jerry McNeely, and he said you make them laugh a little bit, you make them cry a little bit, you scare the hell out of them, and that's entertainment. And that's the essence of the type of musical I want to describe today. Musicals did not acquire an agenda until much later in the 20th century. And by an agenda, I mean they had a message. And one thinks of cabaret immediately. And also carousel. These are not happy stories. But initially, the musicals were very happy stories. Starting with Footlight Parade, which stars Jimmy Cagney, who was a great song and dance man. One thing about Footlight Parade is it's a very popular trope in that the producer has all sorts of problems trying to get the musical on stage. And finally, it's the producer himself who has to step in for the leading man because the leading man is drunk or in the hospital or something. And that's the theme of Footlight Parade. Footlight Parade also contains many memorable songs, none more so than Shanghai Lil. And if you haven't seen it, I urge you to see it. 42nd Street is from the same chapter. It's about a must-do musical that must succeed or everybody's going to be on the poorhouse. And it creates some of the greatest songs you've ever heard. Songs that'll send you out of the theater singing. And that's the whole point of the musical. Rodgers and Hammerstein's musicals, which include Carnival, Oklahoma, and South Pacific, are notable because they mixed light and dark. There are very dark threads in Carousel. And one of the things of the musical is it breaks into song and dance so that the protagonists can forget the misery of their own lives. All these musicals are great, and they all contain memorable songs. My favorite musical of all time is The Bandwagon, starring Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse. And the reason is that because of the circumstances of its production, they were forced to do more with less. Now, all those songs had appeared on stage previously, but not in this format. The Bandwagon is about an over-the-hill hoofer, played by Fred Astaire, inspired by Fred Astaire, who has one last shot at redemption by putting on a killer show. It's very funny because he's forced to team up with this stiff-lipped British song and dance man played by Geoffrey Cordova, who's trying to mount a musical production of Faust. And the whole first half of the film is they want to put on Fred Astaire wants to put on a happy song and dance team with Oscar Levant and Nanette Fabray, who are his collaborators. And Geoffrey Cordova wants to do a musical vision of Faust. So every time they open the door on Cordova trying to pitch the film to backers, he's going, agony, suffering, and they just shut the door and go back. But needless to say, their better natures persevere. And the last third of the show is the show that they intended to put on the whole time, and it's just an explosion of delightful song and dance material. And it ends with the tour de force Girl Hunt, which is a riff on Mickey Spillane set to music, with Fred Astaire as the hard-boiled dick. You have to see it to believe it. And this has parallels with the other great musical of 1953, Singin' in the Rain, which featured Gene Kelly. Now, Singin' in the Rain is about the advent of talkies and the effect they had on the film industry. It's very clever, it's very satirical, and it also features a killer song and dance number near the end, only this one is danced by Gene Kelly. Musicals thrived during the Depression. Easter Parade. Fred Astaire alone is responsible for so many great musicals, including his first musical, Flying Down to Rio, which is well worth watching. You've heard of Busby Berkeley. Busby Berkeley was a director and a choreographer who's famous for his elaborate dance routines. And if you see a Busby Berkeley musical, like Flying Down to Rio, at some point the camera's going to be looking straight down on the dancers, and we're not talking one dancer or two dancers or a dozen dancers. We're talking dozens of dancers who are doing these elaborate flower routines. Seen from above, the chorus girls are all facing out and they're kicking their legs up. And whenever they kick their legs up, it looks like a blooming flower. Freddie's presence reminds me of Lady and the Tramp, which is another musical, but we're not going to go into that right now. Of course, Disney is famous for its musicals. Beauty and the Beast strikes me as the most immediate and famous that comes to mind. I'm talking about the animated version. But the songs in Beauty and the Beast won an Oscar that year for Best Song, and that's all you need to know. Funny Face, I think that starred Barbara Streisand, who hit her stride in doing musicals.
Sorry. I was trying to get Freddie's attention. So he's looking at Mommy.
Freddie's attention.
You have Freddie's attention.
Of course, there's The Jazz Singer, which was the original musical, and I believe the first sound movie ever made. The King and I with Yul Brynner.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
The Lion King, which is another Disney masterpiece with songs that resonate today. But the sad thing is that in recent years, the musical is a lot less popular. That's not what the audience wants. The audience wants angst, it wants superheroes, it wants to be scared, it wants monsters. So there have been precious few musicals in recent years. One that comes to mind is La La Land.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
With Ryan Gosling and Emily Hope. And it starts with a bunch of cars stalled on the LA freeway, and the camera zooms in, and people start getting out of their cars and breaking into song, which I love, because it's the kind of trope that musicals used to do. You don't have to explain it. It just happens that way. We can't overlook Cabaret, which was Bob Fosse. And Bob Fosse, of course, was famous as a dancer and a choreographer before he became a film director. Cabaret is about the birth of Nazi Germany, and there are songs in there that will curdle your blood. It was also the vehicle that launched Liza Minnelli into the stratosphere. Michael York is in it as well, and Joel Grey is the master of ceremonies at the Cabaret in a role that got him an Oscar nomination as well. If you haven't seen Cabaret, it's well worth watching. However, it doesn't send you out of the theater with a song in your heart because it's so downbeat. And the purpose of these musicals during the Depression was to make you forget. And Cabaret makes you remember. I'm trying to think some other recent musicals. Disney keeps rebooting all their animated films as live action to various levels of success. But
There was a remake of A Star is Born. Is that a musical?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, in fact, the most recent remake was directed by, well, it stars Lady Gaga and I'm drawing a blank here. The guy that played American Sniper, Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper plays the over-the-hill singer who falls in love with a young singer, and A Star is Born is about their different career paths. As the mentor sinks, the student rises until she becomes the superstar. And it's a sad story in a way, because in each case, the mentor dies. And the remake of A Star is Born is very good. So is the one with Barbra Streisand. But the one with Judy Garland is the one you want to see. It's just a masterpiece. It was Judy Garland's triumphant return to the theater, directed by her husband, Vincent Minnelli, and the songs in it will last forever. If you haven't seen it, you gotta watch it. And when you're done, you'll be singing those songs. I wish there were more musicals. I don't think we'll ever die, because musicals are made by theater people, and theater people love musicals. And we've seen a few in recent years, not to diminish Disney's contribution, but the type of musical that seized the public imagination during the Depression is the kind I like best, because it's entertainment for its own form. I'm not against message movies. In fact, some of the greatest movies we've ever seen are message movies. But first and foremost, they're entertaining. I'm thinking of To Kill a Mockingbird and The Grapes of Wrath. They both made brilliant movies. They were both highly entertaining novels. And they both delivered a social message. But first and foremost, they entertain. So that's my recommendation. If you've never seen a musical or only seen a handful, I urge you to go back and explore the great body of American musicals. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Kiss Me, Kate, because it has a score by... This is driving me nuts. Hang on 1 second, folks.
And isn't Showboat musical?
Yes,
too?
it is, and it's a very great one.
You really like? So we'll stand by. We will do a little panning here to Mac,
Kiss Me, Kate.
who is having a little siesta in the morning. And then Bob, the famous or infamous Bob. Bob, do you want to say hi to the audience?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay, we're back to Mike.
Kiss Me, Kate was written by Cole Porter.
Oh, yes, of
That's
course.
all you need to know. He's one of the greatest American songwriters. Incidentally, there's a musical about his life called DeLovely, which does not gloss over the fact that Cole was homosexual. In fact, it's a central theme of the film. But that doesn't affect his music in any way. And Kiss Me, Kate is his masterpiece. It's a musical version of The Taming of the Shrew. Shakespeare is the inspiration of so many movies. There are probably 100 movies that are based on Shakespeare's plays, and Kiss Me Kate is one of the best. I recommend it, especially for Ann Miller's jaw-dropping performance near the beginning when she sings "It's Too Darn Hot."
Oh, yes, I remember that. All right, well, we better wrap this up. This is,
Yeah,
again, a little longer video than normal. Thank you for hanging out with us, and our goal is to have videos on Tuesdays, so appreciate any comments, feedback, ideas for future videos, and thanks, Mike, and thanks, Mike, and the puppies, and everyone for assisting. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.